Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Debra Eckerling, creator of the DEB Method for Goal Setting Simplified. I'm also the author of your Goal Guide and 52 Secrets for Goal Setting and Goal Getting. You might be watching us live, the replay, listening to us. No matter how you found us, we are so glad you're here. And for the first time, also broadcasting on Substack. So I know, I'm not going to say bizarre. I'm actually really excited. I got these capabilities and I'm like, okay, let's play. So if you are listening, watching, whatever from Substack, say hi. If you found us on YouTube or LinkedIn, even better. Well, no, they're all good. But just say hello and where you're here from and what networking goals you have for the new year, because we are talking about networking today. I am a big fan of starting the year in December, and we're mid-December right now. And part of you can't reach your goals on your own. You need your people. So every week I bring together some of my people to dive into the topic. And today I've got with me Robert Butwin and Mike Roderick. And they're like, when you think of networking, these are two of the people you think of. And Robert, you and I met literally years ago, probably early pandemic when we were all on all of the things. And then, Mike, I'm trying to remember how I found you. Is it possible that Robert told me to start going to GEM networking?
I think it's entirely possible. But a lot of folks, mention GEM and then sort of end up in our world. So yeah, I think that is entirely possible.
It doesn't matter how you get there; it's that you are there. And again, you might be watching this as GoalChat Live. You might be watching the replay or listening to us as GoalChat on the Marketing Podcast Network. We're just here to help you with your goals and find the fun in things like in networking. People say it's like a dirty word. Networking. Oh, goodness, I have to get to networking. But it's really relationship development. It's meeting the people and then meeting them over and over again. So you're creating, fabulous relationships and projects together. That being said, I feel like I should let you guys introduce yourselves because I know you're awesome, but right now everybody else only knows that, that to be true. Wait, let me see. Where did it? Why? Oh, why? There we go. Change one little technical detail. Mike, welcome. Sure. Great to have you here. Who are you?
Thanks. So I'm Mike Roderick. I run a company called Small Pond Enterprises where I help subject matter experts who are feeling overwhelmed by their expertise come up with what is their big idea, what is their main concept so they can get paid for their brains. And I also run a gathering with my friend Jason Van Orden called Generous Entrepreneurs in Media, or GEM for short, where we bring podcast guests and hosts together on a regular basis.
Now, this is really funny. I don't know that I've gotten more than one or two podcast opportunities from being in your community, but I have met a lot of people who've ended up on GoalChat or I've continued conversations with. So we must be doing something right. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think, I think everybody, when they come to GEM, kind of gets what they need. And I think for some folks, they are, they're getting on shows. For other folks, they are trying to find good shows to be a part of. Some people just become friends. Like, it's very much sort of within that realm. It's a nice, always a nice mix of folks.
Awesome. Okay. Well, and like I said, I either met Robert and I really don't remember, Robert, you'll forgive me, how we met, but I'm pretty sure you are how I got to Mike and his world. So please share who you are and what it is about networking that people think about you when they think about that word.
Sure. First of all, before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about GEM because that's where you and I reconnected. I'm not sure if I originally connected at any time, and every time that I ultimately have a conversation with somebody, I always recommend GEM because I probably am there 90% of the time when they have an event. So it's one of the events that I totally recommend. I'm an elite networker. I've been networking full time since September 7th, 1990. I really believe your net worth is in direct relationship to the strength of your network. Many of the times when people show up in networking, and quite often you can ask yourself the question, is your net working when you're networking? Because they're making little mistakes. Nobody goes to a networking event to get pitched to. Really what you're looking at doing is developing those relationships. You want to say something in a way that people want to do the one-on-one. That's really where the magic will happen, when you have a one-on-one, where you get to know somebody. And the point is, most people are looking for what I call visibility, credibility, or connectivity. They're looking to obviously either want to connect to a customer, client, or more importantly, and this is one of the biggest things that most people forget about, collaborative relationships. Some of the key people that I'm now networking with, and that I can relate to the success I have or will be having, is because of people I met at networking groups. So I'm an elite networker, a strategist, a solutionist. Most people, as it relates to what's going on today in the world, are either confused or challenged. And the key is helping people get more clarity so that they can accomplish, the impact, the lifestyle, that they aspire to have.
Because again, you can't reach your goals on your own. You need your people. The more people you have, the more people in your actual network, because if you need something, you just ask, you find your connectors and you're like, do you know someone who does this? Or can you bring me to that person? One thing that's really amusing. So Mike is one of the 60 achievers I interviewed for 52 Secrets, but we have friends in common we didn't realize we had in common. And that's also the beauty when you surround yourself with people who you consider your people, the more people that attracts as well. But I feel like let's define networking. You all know what I think it is, but I would love for you all to share your definition. So Robert, why don't you get started with your definition?
You're asking me that. I've never really thought about defining it, but networking, and I sort of model myself after a 7-year friend of ours, Harvey McKay, and he wrote the book, Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty. It's all about developing those meaningful relationships one way or the other, because I was at a networking group, and one person at the group asked the question, what is the meaning of life? And he said, to live a life of meaning. And to me, showing up and to being of value, because there's so many people, especially with everything that's happening in the world today, are confused. And so for me, networking is helping other people get more clear. And because I'm not ever trying to sell anybody anything. I show up to be of value to help more people so I can live that life of meaning. So networking is developing meaningful quality relationships.
And you also, in alluding to that title, is you want to develop them before you need them. You're not meeting people to, what do they call it? Spray and pray when you go to an event and you're like, here, this is me. You want to meet people, find your people, and develop it before you go into, oh, by the way, I do this, and by the way, do you know someone who needs that? So I think that part of it is, it's not selling, it is connecting, as it were. Mike, your definition would be?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's already been a lot said that really lands. But the way I like to think about it is that I always kind of think about what something isn't and then what something is. And I think that, a lot of the impressions and sort of the ideas and the misconceptions around networking is that networking is about, in essence, climbing a ladder, right? You hear all these sort of different sort of concepts of like, you do this and you do this and you do this. And that's really not what it is. What it is, in my opinion, is spinning a web. So in essence, you're always sort of connecting people in lots of different areas, and just like a web, everyone is supporting each other. So I really think about it in more of this context of, you are creating an environment around you. You're building this web around you, and everybody within that web is supported, right? You're always kind of like helping each other rise up together.
Now, if you watch my show, you could pretty much guess what some of my questions are going to be, but I did not share this, but you basically, Mike, you just started going into what my next question is, which is how do people get networking wrong? Because, we're, like I said, it's December, we're gearing up for the new year. Whether or not you've set networking goals in the past, this is the time, clean slate, make a plan, move forward. But before we can correct people, let's talk about what they do that needs correcting. So how do you feel like people get networking wrong?
Sure. So I think ultimately it comes down to most of the education or most of the ideas around networking are just get out there, right? Like have all the conversations, like do all the things, like meet all the people, and all of these types of dynamics. And I think that what we get wrong in that regards is like you have to kind of know what it is you're looking to do, what it is that you're looking to accomplish, and you also have to have a sense of what matters to you, because you're not going to really enjoy being in a room with a bunch of people who are not excited about the things that you're excited about. And that's not to say that you can't have, like, I do think that a diverse network is important, and that's a important point of view. But I also think that going back to the idea of like your people, like you have to know what you want, or have some sense of what you want in order to know where you should be going, as opposed to just I'm just going to go anywhere and hope and hope this all kind of works out.
Okay, you need the goals, you need the plan, but you also need to do it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to be you driven, not just this and this. And this reminds me, so the beginning of the pandemic, like I said, when we went to anything and everything because we were wanting human connection, I remember those first 2 months I was going to every single meetup, and that's not sustainable either. But when you go and you check things out, then you could figure out, okay, which ones I have my people and which ones do I need to run or walk away from the computer screen. Robert, what do you think? How do you believe people get networking wrong?
You talked about what happened when the pandemic originally happened. When that happened, I started finding myself on Clubhouse, but it wasn't easy to develop, at least I didn't find it easy to get people from Clubhouse to have a meaningful conversation. The biggest thing that I see people, the mistakes that they do, a couple mistakes. Number one, they think me, me, me. You want to flip the M upside down and think we. It's focus on giving up front. I always focus on, every time I have a conversation with anybody, I go in with the certainty that I can be of value. I've got a list of resources, be it other networking groups. You want to do your exploration. I believe in the concept givers gain. I focus on showing, being of value up front. I go in every conversation with the intention of somehow sharing something as it relates to what's going on. I like the 3Ds, discover what's going on in the other person's world, try to get an understanding of the distance from where they are to where they want to be, and the determination, because everything goes back to, I don't want to spend my time if somebody really isn't interested in taking what they're doing to the next level. So it goes back to what Mike said, you want to have a team around you, different people play different roles in that team. And I love the acronym TEAM. Together, everybody achieves mastery. So I've got different people that have filled different roles so that I can hand them off and guide them to the right people so that I can stay in my highest income producing activity, which is networking and having meaningful business conversations.
Okay. Before we dive more into that, you mentioned there were 3 Ds. So we've got discover what's going on. What's the second one?
The distance from where they are to where they want to be, if that's part of the discovery process. You want to, normally when I have a networking conversation on a one-on-one, tell me what you do, what you're doing to advance what you do, and let me figure out what I can do to be of service or value. It's not a one-size-fits-all. An expression I learned over in Thailand when I was over there doing a seminar, same, but different. I've got to figure out what's going on in the other person's world so that I can be of value up front, because I believe in the law of reciprocity. And I know that if I, based on me giving to them, it might not come back from that person, but the universe will always give it back. If you consistently show up to be of value to other people, it comes back to you.
Okay, and then the third thing is determination, right?
Yes.
So we've got discover, distance, determination. What is the worst networking approach either of you have ever experienced? Or if there's more than one and you can't decide, you can share both. Do you have a good one, Robert? It
Well,
feels like
since I
you've
can
got a
see
good one.
I can see Micah's thinking. You know, the worst one, the worst one is always when the person comes in just with the idea of a transaction. And, you know, I'm not, nobody's there to be sold to. We want to develop, and I could give you an example, and I'm not going to name names, but I was on a guy that's got a podcast, and ultimately he made an offer, and I told him I was interested in taking him up on the offer, but I want to have a one-on-one with him. And this is 5 days ago, and ultimately he's never gotten back to me. The bottom line is, I don't want to feel like I'm just a transaction. I want to have a meaningful business relationship if it's going to go anywhere.
Okay, so the person who's only out for ka-ching.
Yep.
Bad. Okay, Mike's looking at me. Yeah.
I mean, I always go back to the idea that people love to feel useful, they hate to feel used, right? Mm-hmm. And when, you know, somebody comes to you and they just sort of like open with things like, oh, well, I see that you know a lot of people, and you know, you're a connector, you can connect me, right? Like all of these things, they're not learning anything about you, and you can tell that in essence you're kind of like a tool for them to you know, sort of get what they want, right? So like that very abrupt, like very upfront, that very much like, you know, can you do this for me? Will you solve this problem for me? Can you introduce me? Like all of those things, I just find it, you're not going to get very good results from that dynamic. And I think what's really important to understand about that from a psychological standpoint is we all have moments and times in our lives where we really need something, where things are not going very well, and we need something. And a lot of the time what that creates is what I like to refer to as asking blinders, where when we're in a very high state of need, it's hard to think about anything else other than what we need, right? So I think that it's important to acknowledge that that exists, right? And it's also important to just take a step back, and no matter where you are, no matter how intense that need is, to just take that step back for a second and say, okay, how do I still show up, have a conversation, understand the other person, and still be able to communicate my needs and my challenges if they ask, right? If they're interested in learning more about where I'm at and what I'm trying to do, then great. But I think anytime you kind of just get into that asking blinder space, and this happens a lot of the time in fundraising and that kind of world, it's not going to be effective. It's not going to work very well.
The need blinders topic, I want to talk a little bit more about that, because it's almost like, this is exactly what it was. In the gem that you weren't at last month, the one when I co-hosted, the question was, you know, what is the biggest challenge you have with asking someone for help? And what came to me was, well, when you're in business, you need to show strength. When you show need, it's you're like fighting two sides of your head, right? It's like, well, I'm a successful business person, but I need clients. I mean, how do you do both of those things at the same time? And I think that's a big challenge, I think, in what people do to get networking wrong is they just don't show up right.
Yeah.
They show up distracted. They show up frustrated. So what do you both suggest? I mean, because you want to show up, you want to be helpful, but you're there also not just to be good. I know givers gain, all that. I am completely with you on it, but there's if you're not doing things that are going to develop your business, you're not going to make money and you're not going to be able to help more people. So it is a cycle. Okay. I think that was a question.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely have thoughts, but Robert, do you have anything that you want to, that you want to kind of start with that? And then I can jump in.
Happy to start. I mean, one of the things that you mentioned, Debra, first of all, I don't have the luxury of not showing up properly. That's part of my mindset. It's like anytime and every time I show up, how are you doing? Amazing. Again, and I know that I'm being authentic, but I'm, virtually always amazing. I've had an amazing life, but the point is I don't have the luxury. So, and as far as when you're talking to somebody, I focus on the value. That's why I've got a variety of resources at my fingertips. So when I start doing the discovery process, doing the exploration, I'm finding out what's going on in their person, because I can copy and paste and send them something, be it list of network groups, people that I've met through networking. One of them is James Feldman. He's very successful. He's given me a lot of different PDFs that are very valuable. So I'm going to give up. So then how do you segue into the fact of asking them? For example, I had a referral today from a person that runs a very successful networking group. Gave him a lot of stuff. And so what I asked him is, I said, I only want one favor from you. Not because I need anything, but I said, what I'd like you to do is get back to the person and just be authentic and tell them the value you got from me. So again, it's how you segue from showing up, giving first. And then if you need, if you know anybody that has this problem, I could be of service to them. So if you got anything of value from what we just talked about, it would be very beneficial if you might know of anybody that, whatever problem you solve.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, I completely agree. And one of my things is, if you're feeling sluggy or icky or whatever, you just don't go. I mean, simple litmus test. Do you have a cold? Do you feel like your head's going to explode? Are you cranky? Are there things going on in your life that you can't disguise? Stay home or stay away from that Zoom room. Go on, Mike. I'm sure you have more to add.
I think what it ultimately comes down to, right, is it's how we present our problem and what we communicate to others. So if we do have a problem, if we're trying to, if we're looking for the next client, if we're whatever it is, like whatever that problem is, there's a way to frame it where you're basically like, oh my God, I'm completely at a loss. I don't know what to do, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. Or there's, I'm doing this. This seems to be, working, but this element doesn't seem to be working. I'm curious, do you have any ideas? What's been your experience, with this particular scenario, right? And very, very often when you present your problem to other people, they're either going to be like, yep, I go through that exact same thing, or I went through that, and here's what I found was most useful. Here's what I found was most helpful. So very often, I think it's more about, like, if there is a problem, it's more about talking about the problem itself, and then basically asking, would somebody be willing to be a thought partner with you in solving that problem, and sort of thinking through, that problem. And I can't tell you the number of times I've, had a conversation and I've basically been like, so here's what I'm wrestling with. Here's what I'm thinking a lot about. Right. And I have conversations with people all the time where I'm basically like, what is the kind of biggest nut you're trying to crack right now? Like, what's the thing that's kind of on your mind the most, that you're thinking a lot about? And I'd just love to hear more about it. And they'll tell me about it. And it's like, oh, okay, based on that, sometimes it's, here's a resource that I think could be useful, or here's some ideas, that I think could be, that I think could be helpful. And a lot of the time when you take the time to really understand somebody else's problem, they're usually going to, at the very least, ask you a similar question or want to help you kind of think through that problem, because we all naturally have a desire to be helpful in some way. Like, we want to solve problems. We want to help folks figure out where they need to, what would be helpful and what would be supportive. So I think that's the difference. It's like, you can show up completely bleeding and being like, please, everybody help me. Or you can say, I'm capable, I've got a lot of stuff going, but here's this thing that's a little bit of a trick for me, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Jump in real quickly. First of all, in networking, I've got a mastermind group of people that, rather than talking to somebody that to share whatever I would be going through. The second thing, especially with what's happening today, if you've got your AI assistant that you've trained, you can always ask them about solutions as it relates to what you're dealing with.
Yeah, and we actually talked about AI last week when Jason Van Orn, who's Mike's partner in the GEM, was on the show. And when you're using AI as a tool, it frees you up to do other things. But I like the idea of you don't show up bleeding, but maybe you've got like a sprained wrist. Has this happened to you? What has worked for you to solve this? Is it ice? Is it rest? Is it? I know that's probably a really bad analogy, but you get the point. The point is showing up with an inquiry rather than a problem is the difference between showing up between I need work to I can't get my prospects to respond to me. Same problem, different approach. And again, when you're going into it with a positive attitude of I need a solution rather than I am desperate, makes a huge difference, because no one wants to hang out with the depressed, frustrated people. And let's be clear, it happens to everybody frequently, right? Because we all want things happening yesterday, right? I was talking before we went live. So 52 Secrets for Goal Setting and Goal Getting. It is goal season. It came out last year, 2 weeks after the fires in LA, where there was a lot of uproar, still is, with what's going on in the country, right? But what am I going to do? It's a good book. So you refresh it and say, oh, this book I've decided is the solution to all that is wrong with the world, because it gives you hope, it gives you solutions, it gives you a plan to move forward. Take 5 minutes, do one of the things, and see what happens, because nothing will happen if you do nothing. Okay, they're nodding. For those who are listening rather than watching, they do agree with me. Yes. Thank you, guys. I would love some more anecdotes. Have you had a situation like where you said, my wrist is sprained, who do you know? But not that, because that's just my analogy. Robert, do you have a situation where you asked for help and you got, because as the helper, it is in your nature, it's in mine too. Okay, what do you need? But when you ask for something and then you got responses in spades.
I got to really think deep on that one. I'll let Mike jump in.
Okay, should we make Mike go first?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it happens all the time where like there are different things and I'm just kind of like, I'm not quite sure, sort of what to do about this, or this thing is really, this thing is really tricky. I'm trying to think of probably, there was one time where I was working on a mastermind, and it was just not selling. Like, it was just really not selling. And I remember going to a friend and just kind of being like, so here's the copy, here's everything I'm doing here. why? Like, what do you think is actually, like, what do you think is
Why?
actually happening? Right. And she looked at it and was, basically like, oh, here's this thing that you do that is very, very valuable, and you never even talk about this in the copy. Like, you never really discuss, like, and for her, it was my ability to curate, right? It was my ability to basically be like, I can find and sort of put the right minds together to come up with, better ways to solve the problems. And she was like, you have not addressed at all that you curate this. So people are probably thinking they're just going to be thrown in with this like random mix of people. And she was like, if you highlight the fact that every time somebody sort of comes in, you're actually matching and figuring out like which minds are going to be the best in the room, that's going to be really helpful. And she sort of like walked me through like how I think about it and sort of how I sell that. And the next time the next round of that mastermind, when I really highlighted that, it was much, much easier to fill. But I had to go to my friend and basically be like, this thing isn't working. Like, I don't know what I'm missing. I don't know what I'm not seeing. And that's one of the questions I ask all the time. When something's not working, I will literally go to any of my thought partners, any of the people that I know, and basically be like, there is obviously something I am not seeing. So I'd love to know, like, you're on the outside here, you're looking at this. What are you seeing that I'm not seeing? And I can't tell you the number of times where somebody's like, oh, well, have you noticed this? Or, oh, this thing is not quite, sort of working in the way that you want it to, the way that you want it to work, kind of thing.
Okay, so leading with a question is another way to develop a relationship, get to know someone better, and benefit yourself along the way. Mm-hmm. Robert, did you find one?
Well, yeah, I'm going to play on what Mike said and what I said earlier. We said virtually the same thing, but we used a different word. Thought leader. I said mastermind. It's like a couple of people, and that goes back to your networking. If you're not just thinking about who am I going to sell to, but who are the people I'm going to collaborate with? Who are my mastermind? For example, and I'll just give you two of many, but, James Feldman helped some very large companies increase sales, $3 billion, got 17 different degrees, and he's like become a brother. Another one, Tony Polici, who's Joe Polish's older brother, who was Dean Graciosa's business and marketing strategist, 30-year friend. But I've got people that whatever I'm dealing with, that I can pick up the phone, have a meaningful business relationship because they're part of my team, they're part of my network. So, if you got the thought leaders, thought process, and then you've also got AI. So, I mean, you've always got those resources around you if you know where to turn.
So this actually, we've come from, the value of networking and showing up better to actually the value of having a network, because when you have these people, that's part of what they're there for. And we've got Jay watching us live. I think he is via LinkedIn. Happy holidays to you too. When something doesn't work, network with others to find solutions. Absolutely. But I think part of the whole point is you have to lead with developing the relationships, and then you've got the people that you can reach out to say, okay, I'm stuck with this. What do I do about that? It's some people are automatic, like you meet them and you're like, okay, they're my people. Anything I ask, they're going to answer, and vice versa. Other people, it takes a while. So what for you is your rule of thumb for okay, wait, this is the question's coming out wrong because the answer is going to be it depends. So I'm not going to ask you what is your rule of thumb for finding and or bailing on networking things that aren't working for you. Well, okay, what is your rule of thumb for finding new networking situations? There, that's a good question. Go, Robert.
All right. Well,
talk to Robert. He'll give you a list. But beyond that,
well, it's knowing where and how.
Okay.
I sort of look at networking, I sort of alluded to it earlier. Is your net working when you're networking? I'm thinking of fishing. Now, you're not really fishing for people, but the point is there's similarities. When you cast your line in the water, is somebody nibbling? You hear about know, like, and trust. I think that's a little bit backward. To me, it's, do I like the person? Then I'll take the time to get to know them and determine if I can really trust them. Are they congruent? Do they say what they say they're going to do? And is it a person that I want to develop the right kind of business relationship with? So, and I could go on because I've been doing it so long, and I've got some meaningful quality relationships just like each of you do. But the point is, what's your intention? Be it when you're networking or even when your goals. It's like when I started my journey, and at the time it was a lady I was dating who now I've been married to for 40 years. And I was walking in a park across from where she lived. And I said, there's nothing or nobody that's going to stop me from succeeding. What's your intention when you network, when you're developing relationships?
I like, because, the know, like, and trust thing, by the way, that's one of those buzz phrases that drives me batty, because we've been hearing it at least 10 years, right? Maybe more. I like the idea of like, know, and trust, because you will know off the bat the people you meet if you want to get to know them better. And it really starts with, or one thing I always say is, when you meet new people, it's not, unless they're red flag, it's not going to hurt to connect with them on LinkedIn. You will be able to assess immediately at any event, in person or online, who your new BFFs are going to be, who are people you want to get to know better, and who are the people that, and then the red flags. So I guess we got 4 tiers. BFFs, they look promising, you're not quite sure, and stay away, Danger Will Robinson. Mike, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of come down to so for me, if I have a really good conversation with somebody, like, I kind of know pretty quickly, like, if we're gonna continue having really good conversations, right? Like, it really kind of like, I usually have a pretty good sense, sort of right away, like, where things land. And the way that I've thought about it in the past is that there's basically 3 types of meetings that I have. So the absolute bottom of the barrel, is what I call the steamroller meeting, where it's basically like they just talk, and it's like I'm Bruce Willis in The Sixth Sense. Like they just keep going, and it's just like, okay, I'm here for a pitch, or I'm here for whatever, and that's kind of like, okay, that one's done, right? And then there's the what I call the two-way pitch meeting, where basically the whole conversation is literally just this, like, what's your business? How do I send, like, what's your referral? And you just sort of like, you talk about the business stuff. And it's fine. And sometimes those things do come into other, sort of channels. And then there's the like great conversation where you don't only talk about business. You're talking about a bunch of stuff. You're jamming on things that you like. They notice something about you. They start talking to you about you. You talk about all sorts of things. Sometimes you get into the deeper elements of like what you're struggling with, or like what you're working on, or like what kinds of things you identify with. And from there, you're like, you walk away and you're like, I had a really great conversation. I want to see them again, right? Like, I want to spend more time with them. I can see, more stuff, more stuff happening in the future. To your question about like, where do you go? Like, where are those people going? Right. So like, if a friend of mine who I've had a great conversation with, and they're discerning, like I'm discerning, says this event is a good event to go to, or my friend's hosting this dinner or this gathering or whatever it is, I'm going to put a lot more weight on that than the random message that I get on LinkedIn or the Book of Faces, right? Where somebody is like, hey, you should come to my thing. It's only for 6 and 7 figure business owners, but I've got a special invite just for you, all of these things, right? Like there's a lot of that, right? Like there's a lot of, I want to feature you in this, I want to do this, et cetera. And it's only $500 if you want to, if you want to be, featured or be part of this, blah, blah, blah. Right. Like, so it's your people will be a filter for you very, very often.
I love it. So you find who your people are and you go where they are.
Yep.
Yeah. And if you're listening rather than watching, there was a lot of eye rolling going on when Mike's mentioning the people. Oh, pitching just for you. It'll be this. I was recently invited to an event, it was $200. It was $100 off. And then 3 days before it was down to $25 to everybody. And I wasn't going anyway because, I have a book deadline. So I didn't need an excuse other than that. But even if I hadn't, I would have been like, something is just not, these just aren't my people. If their goal is to get as many bodies there as possible, it's probably not going to be successful for me. It might be. There's exceptions to everything, but there was something, I just remember when they dropped the price, I was like, if I had paid $100 for it and then it went down, I would have been so pissed.
Would not be happy, right? Like it's one of those things, right? Like you don't want to be that person who spent that money and then found out, oh, by the way.
Well, and this is another question, and I'm really curious your take on it, because there are plenty of free networking situations, online and in person. There are also plenty of ones that you need to be a certain income to join, or it's a substantial investment. How do you discern? I mean, at what point does it make sense to be paying a lot of money for things when you can explore things without that cost? I have opinions, but I want yours first. Robert?
I have thoughts.
That's a great question, and there's more than one way to look at it. I look at the fact that I'm of value and that I'm going to show up and contribute. Now, there have been ones that I've paid for, and they're far and few between at this point. If there was one that I was going to pay for it, at this point, the one I would pay for is meadow.men. Unfortunately, Debra, you're not able to go. It's an all men's group for the most part, but you've got a lot of millionaires and billionaires. I think it's run really good. But there's the other side of the coin, that if somebody's charging, and obviously you want to take a look at, are you getting an ROI on your time and the context and connections that you're making there? And the point is, quite often the people that are paying for it, for the most part, are more serious and committed of being of value. And I don't want to name, there's one group that you're sort of like required to give X amount of leads. I don't like those kind of groups. People have got to earn the right for me to endorse somebody or to give somebody as a lead, one way or the other. So again, I sort of hit both sides of it, and I've been to ones I paid for. But today there's so many really good networking events that you can go at no cost. Besides your time,
right? It's definitely, it's always your time. And Innovation Women is one of the organizations. There's a networking component. I was networking there for a couple of years before I officially joined, to which I got, "You aren't a member yet, Deb?" I'm like, "Well, I am now. Let's just go with it." But and I think this happened a lot at the pandemic. There were a lot of open groups, and then they started charging for it. And if I wasn't getting any value from it for free, why would I pay for it? But it's got to be, for me at least, really special for me to invest money, because in time and in going there and sharing what I know and helping others, which is like you guys, my default mode, why it's got to be really special upper crust. And then there was this one other group, and I have to finish my rant, and then I'm going to let Mike jump in. A friend of mine referred me to this group, and you had to be making a certain amount of money to join. And I said, rough year. Well, how close are you to meeting? And I'm like, delete. I mean, come on.
Oh my God, it's hilarious.
Because it should have been like, oh, well, so-and-so referred you. Yes, we'd love to meet you and have you come. Not how close are you to that. Anyway, Mike, thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I think
Clearly the filter's not working today.
I mean, again, I think it comes down to the relationships that you have and sort of what their experiences have been and what it is that you're actually looking for. So if you are paying to be part of a community, there are different value points to those communities in terms of the connections. Sometimes the brand is a big factor in what, where you're going to go. And it comes down to like what it is that you're looking for. Right. So it's the type of thing where if you are raising, money, right. And you're trying to be around, folks who have a lot of money, you're not going to find a lot of folks who have a lot of money at a bunch of free events, right? You're going to do, but if you join some kind of country club or some sort of higher tier, type of organization or group, and that thing has a decent price point, you're gonna find people who can write those types of checks, who have that, who have that. Same thing if you are in the phase of your business where maybe you're growing the business and you're scaling to a certain level, then it's worth it for you to invest in a group that's with a bunch of people who are either past that level or starting to, or like moving towards that level, because that's what you care about. Like that's what you're looking for. And I think that, where it gets muddy is if the group, the networking dynamic doesn't actually have a very clear objective. Like, I think if somebody's like, yeah, it's just this group and you pay this much and we all like get together and do like, you have no idea who's in it and like what the story is. That's very different than if somebody's like, we have this caliber of people, we focus on this particular thing. And usually there's something else that's in addition to the networking component, right? Where it's like, oh, this group is very much focused on, like I've been part of groups that they're very much focused on joint venture, right? So, where you partner with other people's mailing lists and stuff like that. And if you are in the online space, if you are specifically doing joint ventures, then it makes sense for you to invest in a group that's going to help you find those, those types of people. But if you're not in the online space, you're not doing a bunch of joint ventures, then you don't want to be a part of that, right? So I think it's that type of thing is like, what do you want? What are you trying to accomplish? And then what is the investment that you want to make to be in that particular, environment, and that you can make? I see too many people go kind of out of their way to spend an obscene amount of money on something to be in a particular room, but then they end up in a room with a bunch of people who spent beyond their means to be in that room, and everybody's rich, but everybody's broke, right? Like it's that kind of dynamic.
So look at your goal, see the value, but do your research so you are not spitting in the wind, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yep.
That's a good way to look at it too. And some of what we're talking about, it's not the one-offs. It's joining a community versus joining a one-off. And our friend Bobby Carlton. Bobby, I don't know if you heard my shout out to Innovation Women just a couple minutes ago as probably the most valuable organization because it's there for the purpose of uplifting, making speaker friends, and seeing what happens from there, which goes back to the purpose of networking is to develop relationships, see how you can help others, and in turn, when you need it, you can put your inquiries out there and get good juju intros, whatever you need in return. Okay, we solved everything. Yay us.
Yeah, it's all just perfect, right? No more.
Yes, we've solved all of the problems. What I would love to know before we dive into gifting goals to our audience is what do you say to people who are like, oh, I hate networking. I'm an introvert. I'm a this, I'm a that. Robert, what do you say to introverts?
They make the best networkers. You know, my wife would tell you I'm an introvert. If you know who Ivan Meisner is, and I'm sure you probably do, his wife told him he was an introvert. He actually took a test, found out that that he was an introvert, but you know he was what you call a situational extrovert. So the point is, no introverts. You know, they are amazing network. You know, network is an art, a skill that anybody can develop, and there's many books on it, and there's many people like Mike, myself, many groups that people will help you refine your skills and take your networking to the next level. Remember, it goes back to what I continually say: your net worth is in direct relationship to the strength of your network, and everybody can master that art.
Yes, and I also want to, before we jump over to Mike, Bobby is also in the networking chapter of 52 Secrets. Visibility equals opportunity. So the more you're out there, the more better you are able to achieve your goals because, you know, your people, their people are your people. The more people in your network, the more people in that network. Okay, Mike, what do you have to say to those introverted type people? Or even people who are just networking shy?
Yeah, I mean, I think what it comes down to is don't allow the marketing of networking that is often bad marketing to change how you perceive connecting with people, right? I think that all too often what ends up happening is there's this, there's this brand of networking that's like, I'm out here, I'm connecting with people, I'm getting to know folks, I'm making stuff happen, all these things. And the fact of the matter is that's one component, like that's one way that somebody has sort of networked, et cetera. But ultimately, it's how are you choosing to intentionally develop relationships with people? And that could literally be, okay, I'm going to host a very, very simple dinner. That can be, I'm going to meet one new person a week, like you decide what is going to work for you and what is going to make the most sense for you, not what everybody tells you you should be doing. So I think anytime that somebody's turned off, basically it's because they've been presented a format or a way to do things, right, that is not in line with who they are. And the thing is, there's always like dozens of ways to do something. There's never only one way to do something. So if you want to be intentional about relationship building, you can do it in your own way.
We get to make all of the rules because that's the point, right? The secret to success is there is no one secret. All you can do is take different theories and possibilities out for a spin and see what happens, right? Yep. So let's give some people some possibilities to take out for a spin. So, Mike, what goal do you want to gift? Something people could do today, tomorrow, or really just embrace for their new year, new you networking goals?
Here's what I would suggest. Write down 2 or 3 people that you feel would be open to just like hearing where you're at and what's going on. Like, would be open to hearing you share a problem or a challenge or an issue. Chances are there's somebody. It could be a best friend, it could be somebody that you worked with at some point, but there's somebody on that list that you're like, I know that I could go to that person and actually be real and practice being real. Like, if you practice being real for a little while, you'll eventually be able to be real in front of more people, right? Especially in the whole entrepreneurial world. Like, there's a lot of BS, right? There's a lot of like, let me show you how successful I am, right? But fact of the matter is, we all are figuring it out. So take some time to be like, okay, who are some people that I could just be honest with about where I'm at and see what happens.
Okay, so basically you're practicing having a networking conversation with someone who already likes you.
Yeah, exactly.
Love that. Robert, goal?
The key, as far as if you're looking to reach your goal in networking, and for those of you that don't know me, I love acronyms. And I've got an acronym for as far as reach, as far as how that relates to your goal. Ours is your reputation. Your reputation matters. Mike was talking about, the people that endorse have got certain kinds of credibility. E is the experience that people have. So every time I'm in a networking event or having any kind of networking conversation, I want to make sure they walk away with the right experience, and it's been beneficial. A is authenticity. I think today, especially with everything that's going on, people are looking for more authentic people. C is clarity. Are you able to help somebody else get more clarity, and are your messages clear to the other person? And H, were you helpful? Because if you focus on being helpful, because it goes back to what we talked about, givers gain. So, to me, that's the networking goal. If they want to reach the next level, think of those letters of how to reach the next level.
Okay, and I'm going to give everybody a bonus goal, which is to set networking goals for the new year. So I used to say, way back in the day when everything was in person, one networking event a week is great because you had to like get in your car and go to places. But in this land where we can easily connect with people online, I always feel like 3 times a week is good. So one mixer, one education, one one-on-one. But so mix and match any of these, figure out what you're going to do and do the things, set a networking goal, whether it's set a weekly, I'm going to rephrase now that I've decided what it is. Set a weekly networking goal that you can reach, but see, I used your word again, Robert, but also don't be afraid to do more. We want you to have that success, but if you say, okay, 1-2 networking events a week is great for me, you could still go to a third. It's okay with us to overreach it. But what I want you to do is set things that you will do, because that way you set yourself up for success. So there you go. Oh, this has been such a great conversation. Before we wrap, Robert, what final thought do you want to leave people with today? Or what final acronym?
I could throw a lot of acronyms, but I remember one meeting that I was one of the speakers, and the guy who was speaking with me, what he said, if Robert could be successful, you guys are going to be amazingly successful. So the final thought.
Oh wait, did I ask you where people can learn more about you first? I'm sorry.
Well, you're going to give them my LinkedIn. Otherwise, they can email me at butwin@gmail.com. My name's Robert Butwin. What I really want people to know is when they connect with Robert, they'll do nothing but win. So, but anyhow, back to the goal.
Yes, the final thought. Thank you.
Yeah, my final thought is what the guy said. If I could be successful, they're going to be successful. What I can tell everybody, if Debra, Mike, and I can be successful as networking, you guys are going to hit it out of the park.
Okay, because we're all in this together, right?
Yes, indeed.
And the better you do, the better we do, the better everybody does. Awesome. Okay, Mike, where can people learn more about you?
Yeah. So they can just go to smallpondenterprises.com and any of the social channels, LinkedIn, Book of Faces, all that fun stuff. Come and say hello. Always happy to chat and see where I can be helpful.
How about Gem Networking? How about Gem Networking? They're good.
Yes, and Gem. Yes, Generous Entrepreneurs in Media. You can come and chat. Come to any of the Gem events and say hi as well. Thank you for that.
And I am at the Deb Method everywhere. And if you go to thedebmethod.com/blog, you can get the links and read the goals and watch the replays. And if you want to learn more about me, you can go to thebookproposalexpert.com. It's how I help people get those great book ideas out of their head and into a proposal that can sell. I am live every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific on LinkedIn, YouTube, and now Substack. And you can also subscribe to GoalChat, which is on the Marketing Podcast Network, or at the Deb Method YouTube. That's got GoalChat, the Book Proposal Podcast, and Taste Buds with Deb, because apparently I love to talk, and podcasting goals are definitely my happy place. Okay, I kind of shortchanged you both on the final thoughts, so we're going to try that again. Robert, what final thought do you want to leave people with?
Your success is based on the strength of your network. And the point is, if you feel uncomfortable, just get comfortable, because that's where the magic happens, when you're out of your comfort level.
Your success is based on your network. Get comfortable. On the success of your network.
The strength of your network.
Right. Get comfortable, because the other part is that people want to help you. You just gotta be able to let them, right?
Yeah. Get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Awesome. Okay, Mike, final thought.
Yeah. So I always go back to this, that the keys to all the doors you need to open are in other people's pockets. And that means that you are sitting there with a pocket full of keys. There's all sorts of ways that you can help people. If you have a conversation, talk to them, see where they're at. And there's all sorts of ways folks can help you. So use those keys.
Ooh, that's a new one. I like that. In the book, you've got your windows versus doorway thinking.
Yes.
Which, it's find the less obvious solution.
Yep.
I know. I just took your 3 pages and distilled it into one sentence, but I love that analogy, because you can't reach your goals on your own. You need your people. The more people, the more keys, the more opportunities you can give to others, the more opportunities that they can give to you. Thank you again, Robert Butwin, Mike Roderick, for joining me today. Thank you for prioritizing networking and tuning in. Again, I'm Debra Eckerling, live every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific and at the Deb Method everywhere. Go set some networking goals, and as you go through Debcember, as you plan for successful 2026, find the goals, find your people, elevate each other, because that's how networking works. Okay, everybody, go network. We know you can do it.